So it's been a while since I've done a video recording, so forgive the banter. But right off the bat, one of the things that I want to share today is specifically how I have gone about the process of starting to build out this AI orchestration across multiple agents and platforms. And I think one of the things that gets missed the most is the initial foundation of building out tools that don't require very much effort in regards to actually leveraging the AI. So for me, one of the issues is I'm a power user, so I use AI for all sorts of things across the different platforms, both on the cloud, both or locally, and they all have their different purposes. And across these different channels and conversations, it's very easy to forget where you left off or how to pick things up. And although people will tell you that, hey, you can get a daily debrief and you can set things up like XYZ, I do agree, but I think even before you get to that stage, there is a number of things, very simple ones, that I would suggest and have been very beneficial for me. And today, I was further validated because it has been a little bit over a week or two since I've had the opportunity to get back onto my main project, building out this infrastructure for what's called Open Brain. I have had some issues that I've had to debug along the way. And with that, I'm going to have to stop and go throughout this entire process where I'm establishing what goes where and how to get things connected properly and set up in the way that I want. So what did I do? So this right here is what I've actually typed into my Ollama setup. And this particular channel is simply an index. I've gone throughout these different conversations that I have, and when they are important enough and I know I'm going to be leaving, what I will do is I will ask for a brief summary, and then I will simply add that summary into this chat. And its sole job is to essentially index what that channel's name is, and based on that little summary, it has a pretty good understanding, a useful understanding that can be beneficial for me for a prompt like this, where I am now returning after a long period of being away, and I'm seeking to resume and get up to speed where I last left off in building my agent infrastructure and communication between Slack and my local LLM on a Mac. Where can I go to recall what I should be doing, or where I should go, or even know where I last left off? And this is important because I don't remember if I last left off in sort of a thought process, if I was in the middle of debugging something in that infrastructure, if I was still building out additional concepts. I have no idea. All I know is that as I've gone about my day, I've noticed that this is not operating the way I want it to operate. I need to continue to finish building this because I am now hitting a friction point, which is slowing down my progress. So with those questions in mind, I'm able to simply go to this singular index channel, ask that question, and it's going to run through its files, if you will, which are all just conversational summaries, and it's going to pull up the relevant one for me. And so it did. Right here, it says specialist work in progress build open brain underscore 2026. Now, that particular name is part of a specific naming convention that I have been developing alongside files and folders, as well as across now these AI channels and different platforms. And the importance of that naming convention, some of it derives from front-end development CSS, naming it concepts. This makes it so that if I am scanning through a plethora of different channels, that have all sorts of different text, you know most of those channel names are pretty useless as you're looking through them on that sidebar. Well, if I see one that clearly has been formatted in a particular way, it immediately holds visual value to me, that I recognize that it is something important. And with that, it's easy for me to hunt it down and find it. Also, within the search of whatever AI platform I'm utilizing, it also makes it much easier to find and locate. The other thing about this naming convention is that it's particularly set up in a way so that I can make modifications, I can grow and scale it over time, and most importantly, it's really geared towards me, my understanding, what I see as intuitive, and really trying to simplify anything so that I'm not dealing with a lot of um, guessing and checking across different platforms and even second guessing the answer that is being provided to me through my index. So I'm going to go to Claude because that is where I last left off this particular conversation that would be relevant, specifically as it applies to the concept of the central nervous system, cross-platform communication. Specifically, I have a Slack capture bot and the local LLM memory infrastructure, right? Now, is this the only piece and component related to that? No, there's multiple. And depending on who you are, you'd probably think that they'd be inside of like a project folder inside of Claude. However, that is going to limit me to being within a folder structure exclusively to Claude. Having said that, I definitely use projects inside of Claude, but there's going to be preferences on when I want my folders to be isolated and stuck inside the ecosystem of that particular AI platform. Now, inside of Claude, I have made specifically one project called generator naming. Even the name generator naming tells me specifically a little bit about this project, a little bit about what this does, because it is something that the whole concept is I am going to drop in one question, one statement, and it is going to go through and provide me the name. And this is based on rules that I have both established as well as continue to develop alongside Claude. And so as I might propose an idea or it might propose an idea, I can push back if something doesn't quite feel right. My goal is to get these naming conventions to feel intuitive. And so if it is a structure that Claude thinks is more beneficial, I don't want to have it go off track because this is meant to be beneficial for me. And so although there might be more organized ways of doing it, from a visual standpoint, from the way I am particularly operating, and because of the chaos that I know is going on across all these different platforms, and just the reality of trying to do this kind of stuff, there is the practical approach. And really what I'm trying to do is remove that lag time that takes place. So I've named it generator naming. So it is something where I'm going to drop in a concept. For example, I might say I want to be able to do XYZ. I have a channel on Grok that is XYZ, and what should it be named, right? Or I might actually drop in my proposed name and it will either give me the green light or give a pushback and say why that might cause confusion. This has helped build a lot more consistency across folders, across files, and also across all these different, AI platforms. The reason why the naming is so important, this is actually something that I've been doing for quite some time. I've gone through Trello, I've gone through Notion, I've gone through all sorts of Google Docs, folder structures, etc., subcategories, you name it. And one thing that always tends to happen is this sort of natural drift that takes place as you're trying to organize projects or you think of a better system. And so, one of the things that's been the most beneficial here is by having a good naming convention that is specific and unique to your particular approach really goes a long way. And when you have these concepts and you have a lot of examples that you can feed into it, it can actually help you identify why you're going with some of those naming conventions. I use double dashes, I use underscores, I use capitalization, I use camel case. There's a difference in both visual weighted value as well as importance. There is a sequence about how things break down, and all of that is communicated to me visually. It's very easy because of the patterns that are recognizable by something like an AI that maybe I myself couldn't quite put my finger on, but it's able to say in a more structured and well-mannered way that I can actually start to build out these rules and build new keywords and new processes, so that as I continue to build out these naming conventions, well, not rather naming conventions, but as I continue to build out these names, it will continue to produce something that is easily indexable for both the AI as well as for myself. So one thing that I can show you is that doing a naming convention across these different channels is something that can continually evolve, but you can see how the evolution takes place and concepts are kept. And you can always go back if they still hold value to rename things based on what the naming convention is going about, what the index name is, etc. Having said that, this index is beneficial because if you have old channels or you haven't built out that solid naming convention process, you still have the easy ability to identify when things need to basically be remembered to some degree. And maybe you're not changing or updating the names now. Maybe that's something you can provide an agent to do as a task later down the road. But for now, here's an example where you can actually see some of the previous names. So here I have, for example, you can see here December / local agent rig. You can also notice that I'm using a combination of camel case, full uppercase, the double dashes to provide a variant. That naming concept comes from front-end development when CSS was using BEM naming conventions. Here you can see something, email fixer. I actually don't even know what this is for, but you can see concepts for when I started to include pipes and specificity. I still use a lot of these concepts, and although these are older and they may not actually be needed by me anymore, they are part of the evolution, because I can tell you all these other things that don't have any sort of special name, they are of very little visual value to me, and so there's no question or confusion as I have to visually go through something. Now here you can see my AI dispatcher received a very simplistic name, AI dispatcher, and that's specifically for my AI orchestration. Very simple, straight to the point. Same situation here, personal assistant, daily tasks. And with that, you see that pipe infrastructure as it makes sense to me. And even this has evolved quite a bit so that there's a difference between variations a little bit on what would be beneficial for within AI platform channel names versus folder names and all sorts of things like that, where you might have small adjustments because of character limits, special character rules, and that kind of stuff. I realize this was a particularly long video, but having said that, I hope you got some great value out of it. Thank you for your time. Have a nice day.